Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Evelina by Fanny Burney. It's in an Oxford World Classics edition. I've actually been wanting to read this book for a while. It weighs in at about 400 pages plus another probably 50 pages of endnotes. Fanny Burney is a contemporary of Jane Austen, and in fact, you're going to see a lot of influence of Jane Austen, in this book. So Jane Austen read this. She liked Burney actually quite a bit as a novelist. You will see a proto Darcy character in this novel. You're going to see a cad literally named Willoughby. You're going to see a love story that blossoms despite some, shall we say, pride and prejudice. There are visits to Bristol and to Bath and to London as backdrops for learning about life and men. The first thing you should know, this is an epistolary novel, and epistolary referring to epistles, letters. These are letters that are written between Evelina and her different correspondents. Now, there's a bit of stretching here because some of these letters are so detailed, so descriptive, as to not really be believable as letters, but once you understand the conceit, you'll also know it was the fashion at the time to write novels in this way. I don't think that having to stretch your belief takes away from the novel, but I found myself asking the question, what have we lost in a society by the loss of the ability to write letters? I was raised by my mother to write thank you notes. I think I wrote my first thank you note at the age of 7 or 8. I wrote letters because I grew up before the age of the internet, so living internationally, the only way I could keep in touch with people was by writing letters. Couldn't afford the long distance phone calls. So one of the things I know that letter writing has done for me in my life, it has given me the ability to be thoughtful about different situations in a way that I could not necessarily have on my own. Oftentimes we solve things in our life. There's a famous idiom that something is solved by walking. And sometimes you just need to walk and thoughts will come to you to fix a particular situation. But also, too, I would say sometimes problems are solved by letter writing. As you're expressing a problem or a thought to a friend, something will occur to you because you had to explain it to them in an epistolary format. And I find, obviously, our society writes a lot of text messages. We write emails, so we haven't not been writing. But those are fairly instant forms of communication, and they're going to be read by the counterparty immediately. What it takes to write a letter to someone who's not going to receive it for a while, it could be as fast as a day a letter could arrive, or it could take a couple weeks for a letter to arrive. But the point is that style of communication, what is being lost to us as a society for not writing letters to each other? I think that's important, and I think that's revealed to us here, and part of that is the ability to slowly consider the direction of our life, the choices that we're making. We're forced to make decisions quickly or confront things quickly because of the speed of our communication. A bit of the medium is the message, if you might. That letter writing allows you to dive back into a slower medium. I encourage people to write letters. I actually have a few correspondents to this day that we still write letters to each other. But most people are not going to be able to do it with you only because they never learned how to letter write, so it might be really hard for them to get into a rhythm with you. And they may not see the point of it. So I'm old enough to have been raised writing letters, and I like writing letters, but reading an epistolary novel made me question why is letter writing important, and I believe it does. It is important. So you see her writing, Evelina's writing, and part of what is going on in the book is the question of exposure to the world and the dangers that come with it. And I think one way I want to look at this is, obviously there's a danger if you drive. For example, in the United States, there are at least 40,000 road deaths a year. Now, that means if you're getting in a car, you have a chance of dying. But even if you don't drive and you're simply a passenger, you have a chance of dying as well. So I think if you take risks in your life with the counsel from the people around you that you trust, your friends, your family, clergy, nuns, who counsel you, you can take those decisions with confidence with the sort of group consultation. You could potentially take decisions with confidence just from your own input, but there's never anything wrong with seeking the input of others. No one's ever going to say, oh, I really regret asking people for advice. Insofar as I'm not saying you'll necessarily make the right decision by getting it, but there's nothing wrong, there's nothing harmful in soliciting the advice and the opinion of others, especially if they are people who really care about you, because they're able to see things and see risks that you might be blind to, and you should think about that. Something else to consider is apart from travel, is what it means to have a reputation, and this applies equally to both parties. So I'll start with the first idea of there being risk. Now, my good friend, it is very earnestly their wish to enlarge and enliven their party by the addition of your amiable ward, who would share equally with her own daughter the care and attention of Mrs. Mervyn. Do not start at this proposal. It is time that she should see something of the world. When young people are too rigidly sequestered from it, their lively and romantic imaginations paint it to them as a paradise of which they have been beguiled. But when they are shown it properly and in due time, they see it such as it really is, equally shared by pain and pleasure, hope and disappointment. And meeting your heroes, going to the places you dream about, are some of the most effective ways to bring you into reality. You'll find out, oh, my heroes aren't perfect. Oh, that place I idealized isn't perfect either. But it may meet your expectations. I said this recently in a video I did on my friend Molly's The Americans in Paris channel. I can put a link to it in the description. That Paris has never let me down. I had high expectations for Paris, but Paris has always met and exceeded them. And I'm happy to have a separate conversation in the comments about your own opinions about Paris. Don't want to get too sidetracked. Here's something I feel is as true in the time of Evelina, so in the 1700s as it is now. Remember, my dear Evelina, nothing is so delicate as the reputation of a woman. It is at once the most beautiful and most brittle of all human things. And I would say broadly to both men and women that social media underlines this point more than ever, and in part because the internet is forever. Even if people try to delete stuff, it's captured in other places. That I don't think, not just women, but men do not take care of their reputations the way that they could and the way that they should. In this era, it was actually very easy to hide things. And part of the conceit of the novel is the hiding of a child, as a particular orphan. And I'm not going to ruin that part for you. You're going to have to read it yourself. But that was because the internet didn't exist. The information wasn't out there. Today, your reputation, in a sense, is easier to preserve because you are in charge of your social media feeds. But sometimes we can be the number one people to undermine our own reputation. So I would argue we have to keep an even closer eye on these things than we might have in the past. If you're enjoying this commentary, consider hitting like, subscribe, checking out my channel. I do other book reviews like this. I don't always do Regency era novels, but I do sometimes. Some of what is being satirized here is the infantilization of women. And what you have to realize, one of the side effects of the Protestant takeover of England after they killed the priests and stole all the land from the church and the monks and kicked out the monks was this Protestantization of the culture. And part of that was women had to be in their place. This had not been the case under Catholicism. And in fact, if you look, for example, the trade tokens, the guild tokens of businesses, the men and women's names were often on the tokens of the business. That changed under Protestantism, and the role of women declined to such that if you want to understand more, as I did when I first read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, Vindication on the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft, I'll put links to those books in the description. These are books that underline for me what were women being treated like in this era, and they were basically just crafted as playthings for men, not to be engaged with in serious conversation. And in a certain sense, how could you if that's what you've been raised to? And here this is being satirized by Burney. So this is a father figure speaking. Not a father figure, an actual father, sorry. As to them operas, I desire I may hear no more of their liking such nonsense. And for you, Moll, to his daughter, I charge you, as you value my favor, that you'll never again be so impertinent as to have a taste of your own before my face. There are fools enough in the world without your adding to their number. I'll have no daughter of mine affect them sort of megrims. I'm not going to have any daughter have her own opinion, have her own thoughts. And when you raise an entire society of women like this, are you going to create companions, helpmates, partners, friends, or are you just creating playthings? There's a real danger in that kind of society, and I think it was exposed by Wollstonecraft, Woolf, and other writers who are pointing to this. Jane Austen does it as well. She does it in a much more subtle and I think imaginative way, but she's pointing out the sort of problems that such a society has when it creates role of a woman simply as a plaything, not to be taken seriously, not to have any mind of her own. Here's another character. So would every man in his senses. Oh, sorry, before this. I have the honour to be quite of your lordship's opinion, said Mr. Lovell, looking maliciously at Mrs. Selwyn, for I have an insuperable aversion to strength, either of body or mind, in a female. Faith, and so have I, said Mr. Coverley, for egad, I'd as soon see a woman chop wood as hear her chop logic. So would every man in his senses, said Lord Merton, for a woman wants nothing to recommend her but beauty and good nature. In everything else she is either impertinent or unnatural. For my part, deuce take me if ever I wish to hear a word of sense from a woman as long as I live. This is dooming a society. You're going to doom your society if you want to raise women not to have any sense, not to have any kind of education, not to have any thoughts of their own. This isn't to say that you should train them to be like men. That's the overcorrection in which anything a man can do, I can do better, and we're the same, and there's no difference except our biological parts, and even that can be changed. A society that values men and women for being men and women, for their different roles, for their different abilities, for their different strengths and weaknesses. We know that women have, in a sense, more emotional bandwidth. They have more ability to connect with people than men do. That's just facts. Physically, men are stronger and more capable, and they're willing to do these dirty tasks like working in plumbing or working. These are choices. In Sweden, where there's a great amount of freedom and you could say liberation for women, most of them still choose to be teachers and nurses. Even in a very egalitarian society, why women have certain tendencies to take care of people. Is that a bad thing? Is that something we should stamp out of women? No, but we certainly don't want to infantilize them. And I think that has been changed, but I think it's almost swung into the opposite direction in which women are becoming the men that they want to marry. And then they're surprised when the men don't want to marry them. And I think that's a shame. And they, in a sense, they've been lied to, but they've also accepted the lies without questioning them. And I think that's also too bad. The last two quotes I want to read to you are about getting to know people and something that we can appreciate in people. The attention with which Lord Orville honors me is as uniform as it is flattering, and seems to result from a benevolence of heart that proves him as much a stranger to caprice as to pride. For as his particular civilities arose from a generous resentment at seeing me neglected, so will they, I trust, continue as long as I shall, in any degree, deserve them. I am now not merely easy, but even gay in his presence. Such is the effect of true politeness, that it banishes all restraint and embarrassment. And I think that's something I've noticed in my interactions with people when I've been around really kind people. They bring out vulnerability in you. You feel like you can tell them anything. And you could have just met them, 10, 15, 20 minutes ago. Part of that is me as an American. Americans, we're willing to share with total strangers. It's not something a French person would do. But even a French person can be influenced by the kindness and guilelessness of a friendly and polite person. They will bring out that trust in you early. And the last part I want to talk about, 1,000 occasional meetings could not have brought us to that degree of social freedom which 4 days spent under the same roof have insensibly been productive of. So this is just a reminder, if you want to get to know a friend, if you want to get to know someone you're courting, potentially considering for a spouse, travel with them. See what they're like under pressure. See what they're like when things are going through difficulty, and you will learn so much more about them. And I think that's crucial, not just for friendships, not just for family. Sometimes you have no choice, and family has their own challenges, and that's part of life. I accept that. But with friends or people that you might have a romantic interest with, using opportunities to travel in appropriate circumstances and with proper division and separation allow you to really get to know someone in a way that many dates couldn't. Many times going out to dinner, many times going out to a walk in the park. Those things do matter, and I'm not saying they aren't important. But having the ability to see them in a different context, in a part where both of you are outside of your comfort zone, these are ways for you to take a quantum leap forward. And I've seen that happen in my own friendships, that I've traveled with friends and our friendship just went beyond levels. I would say it went to the next level, but it went 6 or 7 levels beyond that, and we we've shared things that I'll always remember potentially until I pass away. And don't miss opportunities to do that, to spend extended time, vacations with friends, trips with friends, people you care about. It's an awesome and wonderful opportunity to get to know them in a way that you couldn't in any other way do so. So I can only encourage you to do that. I can also encourage you to hit like, subscribe, share this video with people who might be interested in reading novels from the same period. If there's someone who likes Jane Austen or the Bronte sisters, strangely enough, they may have never heard of Fanny Burney, even though she's noted as a favorite author of Austen. So if this person is a fan of Austen, this might be a fun gift. If you'd like to buy a copy for a gift, there's a link in the description. I'm feeling very pluggy today. I'm just plugging things. There's a link in the description. It's one way that you can support this channel is by buying a book through those links. You can also support the channel by sending me a buy me a coffee or a PayPal. There's links to that below. You can also support the channel on an ongoing basis by becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. You'll get early access to videos like this one as well as the chance to get member-only videos in which I talk about books that I don't review but I'm still reading. If you'd like to nominate one of those books for a future review, you can do so and sponsor the video by looking through my Amazon wish list. You'll also see books about Palestine and Israel. That's not for this channel. That's for my Palestine bookshelf channel. If you'd like to know more about that, there's a link in the description. But simply buy a book from the wish list, send it my way. You'll effectively have sponsored the video through that purchase, and I will try to get to that review as quickly as possible. As always, until next time, enjoy your reading.